God here. And it's football season. And it's like 100 degrees outside. Sorry about that. Welcome to Season 4 of Gods of Odds, hosted by two of my favorites, Brad Hoyseth and Dave Daba.
Welcome to the Gods of Odds. It is NFL playoff weekend, if you will. It is the divisional round of the playoffs this weekend. That's Brad Hoyseth over there in beautiful but dark Southern California. I'm Dave Daba up in Northern California. And Brad, I think we might be one of 1 million shows that can't believe the Dallas Cowboys decided to bring back Mike McCarthy for a fifth season.
Yeah, there was a lot of stuff that happened this last weekend. That was, you could spend an hour just talking about the last round of playoff games, but that I think was the one that clearly stunned people the most, was just the pathetic performance by the Cowboys. And really, I thought one of the stories of the weekend was the two young quarterbacks, Jordan Love and C.J. Stroud. I mean, that was a great story. Both those kids looking really good last weekend. And, I think just the way things shook out last week, I think it really makes things interesting for this weekend. And then, what's going to happen in Philadelphia? It sounds like Nick Sirianni's probably going to come back. They're going to probably give him at least another year to try to get things turned around. But, all I kept thinking about all weekend was, how quickly, things can fold. And, the window of opportunity, you always hear about that window of opportunity is so small and so narrow, and it can close quickly. And, man, I've never seen anything close quicker than when it closed on the Eagles. That was like a 3-week collapse, and I don't see him ever coming back from that. I think you're looking at a complete rebuild of that defense, and the offense suddenly doesn't seem to look like they know what they're doing either.
The offense looks absolutely terrible, and I don't know if Kelsey has announced his retirement or if he's going to try to come back and fix things next season, but. Regardless of that, the offense was just absolutely horrific. And you're right. I don't think I've seen a collapse like that ever. Now, in the National Football League, teams start hot and then they cool off and then they stay cool. But they were 10-1 at one point this season. And to get beat by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in the way they got beat. It wasn't just the fact that they lost, it's how they lost. That is just unbelievable. And so I think if Nick Sirianni has lost the players and the other coaches on the team, then he should be gone. If that's not the case, and this was just simply, as you mentioned, we got to go rebuild the defense, and then he definitely deserves another year. It's amazing though. He was just in the Super Bowl. And then Mike McCarthy, 12-5, 12-5, 12-5. The highest rated I think offense in the National Football League this season. Preface that with an asterisk that says regular season now, but. It's just unbelievable to me how people were going for Mike McCarthy's head. And I was as well. I'm absolutely shocked. But how long was Jason Garrett the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys, Brad? 14 years? Jerry just wasn't prepared to make a move. They'll be prepared next year, though.
Yeah, I was talking to some people on one of my sites that I go to, the big Viking fan site, right? And, they're talking about, the Vikings should bring back Cousins, and, they want him back now, right? Because they saw what life was like with Dobbs and Mullins and Jalen Hall, right? And so, but I'm like, well, Dobbs and Mullins and Jalen Hall they're not NFL quarter. They're not great players. So that doesn't mean Cousins is a great player. let's not forget he was 4-4 with the starters this year, was Kirk Cousins. So he was, marginally better, but he's not your answer coming back at 36 with an Achilles. You got to move forward. And what I said to these people was, one of the big storylines this last weekend was Jordan Love and CJ Stroud, young quarterbacks that, that's what this league is made of. It's not made of 36-year-old guys. It's made of young kids that splash onto the scene, and they're great. And, that's what the Vikings need. They need to move in a different direction. They need to get a young quarterback like one of these kids. There's a long line of them coming out of the draft this year. And so I thought that was one of the great storylines was Love and Stroud. And I think they make this weekend very interesting.
Yeah. I mean, I've been on the, you can't let Cousins go because if you do, this is going to happen. But you're right. Like in order for the Vikings to actually really move forward as an organization, they need to find the heir apparent to Kirk Cousins. And so, they got to go out and they've got to get one of these top 5 quarterbacks in the upcoming NFL draft. And then look, if they want to bring Cousins back on a 2-year deal with the second year being an option, and Cousins wants to come back and play for, one more season, then that's fine. There's nothing wrong with sort of some of these quarterbacks watching. But the opposite of that is CJ Stroud, who's just came in and immediately took everybody by storm. I seriously doubt if Jordan Love had the opportunity to start day one, he'd still be in the National Football League today. He has learned a lot. Obviously, he looks absolutely fantastic. And I think the big question is, will either of us go Packers over 49ers today?
Now let's jump into my first game here. My first one on the docket is the Bucs at the Lions. The Lions are 6.5-point favorites at home. I think most of America saw what happened in that Lions game the other night. There was, let's just say there was more than just, I mean, I know we had a lot of comments from Lions fans last week. They were very, very temperamental, let's just say. You can see that, you can tell it's been a while since the Lions have won anything. And so there was a lot of people giving comments from the comments section, but my message to them is that Dave Daba and myself were both right. We took the 3 points with the Rams and we won. We beat the line right now. The Lions, look, I don't know how you get away with that many calls. The officiating, those guys can't be invited back. That was horrendous. I mean, on the one play alone that sent Stafford to the blue tent, you could have called 5 penalties. I mean, you could have had, 3 roughing the passer late hits on the quarterback. There was 3 of them, right? First of all,
I was watching that and I was like, these referees need to go back to summer school. And then I was like, hey, maybe the new USFL XFL league that had a baby, which is now called the UFL. Those guys should have to go spend the spring refereeing games in the UFL for that performance.
Right. Now, whether or not the Lions would have lost that game, we don't know. I mean, really, the Rams would have still had to score, but there was also the 2 egregious grabs of the jersey that were not called on third down for the Rams.
Yeah.
Could have been, at the very least, defensive holding or pass interference, whatever you want to call it. And so it was bad. But the Lions get away with it. They win, right? And so now they get a Buccaneers team who, had the game of their lives against. Remember last week, Dave, I said, I think the Eagles are one of the worst 10 teams in all of football. And I turned out to be right. They're terrible, right? That defense. And so
I will forever regret, Brad, picking the Eagles in that game.
Yes, I had the Buccaneers. I thought the Bucs would win that game outright. The Eagles came in beyond limping. I mean, they were dead. And so now the Buccaneers, they get the second worst defense in the playoffs, and that's the Lions, right? And so you say to yourself, can the Bucs do this twice in a row? My answer is absolutely not. They are the Buccaneers. That's Todd Bowles It's Baker Mayfield. I'm going to take the Lions at home. I know it's 6 points. It seems like a lot, but I'm going to take the Lions and give the points. I just don't think the Bucs can get enough pressure on Jared Goff, and I just don't think they can match point for point. It's not a very good offense in Tampa, despite what we saw last week.
Yeah, I mean, like, I so want to continue to piss off the Detroit Lions fans, Brad. Yeah, I so want to flip-flop on what I had planned on doing, which was giving up the points and taking the Lions in this one. I'm actually surprised the line is as low as it is. Yeah, I absolutely love what Baker Mayfield did. It's a great story. Pay the man. I heard this stat the other day. In the National Football League, Baker Mayfield has made $55 million as a starting quarterback. Jared Goff, Marin Catholic's Jared Goff, has cleared $150 million in career earnings as a starting quarterback. Baker, get your money, man. And please bring back the Progressive insurance commercials, but this time it could happen at the Big Sombrero. That being said, I think this is the end of the road for this Tampa Bay Buccaneers team. Look, Hutchinson has been a beast. He's gonna get some pressure on Mayfield. Mayfield is still hurt. They'll play the scheme differently. I wouldn't be terribly surprised to see the Buccaneers still in this game at the start of the fourth quarter. But I like the Lions a lot. And so hopefully this gives us some cred with the Lions organization. And Brad, I appreciate you pointing out that we were actually indeed right against the spread to all of those people that made comments last week.
Oh, absolutely. I'm going to point that out all day long, right? So, but no, I've been saying it for 2 years when they had last year Leonard Fournette that Rachaad White is a very good running back. He's a good football player. And I think he turned out to be – I think you can call him a top 5 back in the NFL right now. I think he was third in the league in rushing. I mean, he's a good receiver. He's a good football player. They don't have a great offensive line, but I think it's irrelevant this weekend. I just think the Lions get after him. Yeah. You know, they got a second life. The referees gave them a second life. I think they're going to make it stick. And then all I got to say to Lions fans is tune in next week if you play the 49ers, because you're not going to like that prediction.
No. And I was thinking about this. Wouldn't it be great, though? I mean, seriously, like if we could have a Buccaneers, Packers, NFC championship game. That to me would be just so entertaining. It would piss off two huge fan bases if that were to actually happen. And I would there's no way I'd be pulling for the Packers in that one. I'd be all over Baker Mayfield and the Bucs. All right, moving over to the AFC conference. The Baltimore Ravens have been talking a little bit all week about how they're not going to come out stale, so to speak, that they're going to be sharp for the start of this game against the Houston Texans. The Ravens, to take them, you have to give up a whopping 9.5 points. And Brad, you know how I hate big spreads like this. I love the CJ Stroud story. I love what the Houston Texans are doing. I just believe that this Ravens team is fired up and they are literally going to make a statement from the very beginning of this game. I don't see the Texans getting anywhere near the Ravens in this one. Love the story of the Houston Texans. I just don't see it. I'm giving up the 9.5.
You know, I'm buying what they're selling in Houston, Dave. You know, I think it's I'd love to see them with Tank Dell back. I mean, because I think they have with Nico Collins. I think Nico Collins is a freak. I mean, I think he's going to be next year. You know what DK Metcalf was when he came onto the scene. He's going to be what AJ Brown was when he's a big, physical, tough wide receiver. That kid is impressive, and it's a shame they lost Tank Dell earlier in the year because those are That's two really outstanding targets for C.J. Stroud. And they got a pretty good running game. And, if that defense shows up, look, the quarterback of Baltimore is a great regular season quarterback, but he is still not proven to win in the playoffs. He just
1-3.
Yeah, he's 1-3. And just when you think Baltimore's great, John Harbaugh shows up. I'm not, I'm not a big John Harbaugh guy. I just don't care for the guy. I'm not a big Harbaugh family guy, Dave. But nonetheless,
we know where you won't be having Thanksgiving dinner.
I'm fine. I got plenty of meat here. So, look, I'm going to take the Texans. It's 9.5, and I think Baltimore wins the game. But I think this kid at quarterback is special for Houston. I really think that. And, I know Baltimore's lost one of their corners for the week. He's not going to play. That hurts. Mark Andrews may or may not be back at tight end for them. But I just think that they're riding a high right now, and they'll keep it interesting. Whether or not they can have a chance to win the game in the fourth quarter, I don't know. But I'm going to take the 9.5. I think it's a little rich.
Look, whether or not Mark Andrews plays, likely he's been a beast. I mean, he's a different type of tight end than Andrews is. But I really wanted to take the Texans in this game. I really did. I think you're going to see a statement game here by the Baltimore Ravens. I think the Ravens are going to the Super Bowl, Brad. And you're going to have to talk about John Harbaugh for another 2 or 3 weeks, which would just be highly entertaining if we could get a Todd Bowles, John Harbaugh Super Bowl. That would be the ultimate. The question is, would Brad Hoyseth watch?
Well, I mean, look, I think Baltimore's going to win. I mean, so I think Baltimore's got a matchup coming next week. That's going to be intriguing, because I'm just going to give you a little precursor. I'm going to take the Bills, by the way, against the Chiefs later on in this show. But to me, that's an intriguing matchup. Another thing I don't like about Baltimore, the starters haven't played a game in 3 weeks when they hit go come this weekend. And so that's a lot of time. I think there's certain teams when the bye weeks and all that stuff hits at the right time and it's good for them, they need it. The way Baltimore was playing, I would rather have them just keep playing. I mean, I don't want suddenly a team to forget what was going right. I don't like the idea of the timing of it all. And, they took week 18 off, and then they missed last week because they had a bye, and now basically it's going to be 3 weeks since anybody hit anybody. So I don't like that, and Houston's clicking on all cylinders. Houston's got nothing to lose. They're coming into that game. They're going to be flying high. They're playing with house money at this point, and I think the pressure's all on the Ravens. I really do.
I think we get better football if we did away with the bye. I'm done with the buys. First of all, go to 8 teams in each conference and do away with the bye. Like, there's no bye in the NHL, Brad. There's no bye in the NBA. I just like I
don't like it at all. I never have. I've always thought that if you're in the NFL and you get home field advantage throughout, isn't that a big enough advantage? I mean, why do you need to then also be the only? It used to be that a couple teams had the weekend off, so you didn't feel that bad about it. But now it's basically one team in a conference gets the weekend off, and the other 6 are playing. Right? I just don't like it. I don't like the format at all.
All right, what do we got next, Mr. Hoyseth?
All right, well, hold on here a second. I got to bring up my spread. I got the Bills and the Chiefs, right? I said we're just talking about that. Or no, I'm sorry. I got the Packers at the Niners. And the Niners are 9.5-point favorites. The Packers obviously riding high after that win And for a Vikings fan like yourself, that was tough to watch because, after Brett Favre and Aaron Rodgers and about 30 years of watching them just, slice apart the Vikings defense, now you had to watch the coming out party of another guy, Jordan Love, who looks really good, Dave. And so, but look, this is a different kind of animal they're facing this weekend. They're not facing the team they faced last weekend, that's for sure. The Cowboys, who, like you said, I don't understand how McCarthy keeps his job, but now they're going to San Francisco, and that is a team that needs to make a statement. San Francisco, Baltimore, they made their statements 5 weeks ago, right? But I think the Niners are uber ready for this game. And I think they're going to really put the wood to Green Bay. It's like I said, it's 9.5. I'm going to take the Niners and lay the points.
I would say that the Green Bay Packers don't really need to make a statement. I mean, their statement has already been made.
No, the 49ers, I said they need to make a statement.
Yeah, the 49ers absolutely need to make a statement because it's going to be hell for Brock Purdy this summer if he goes out in this divisional round at home. My wife was at Levi's Stadium earlier in the day, and she came back, and then we were catching up, Brad, and I was like, hey, don't forget, don't make plans. Saturday night, we've got the 49er game. and then about 20 minutes before we hopped on this podcast to get this thing shot, he goes, oh, we've got a family dinner. A relative of ours, it just happens to be his birthday. And I'm like, just make sure we're going to a restaurant with a TV, please. I said, and I know some of his friends, and I said, is, Mike coming, and is other Alex coming? And she's like, no, they said they couldn't get sitters. And I said,
yeah.
The 49er game. That's why.
Doesn't somebody have to sit your dogs, Dave?
I feel like I'm coming down with something again. Anyways,
you look ill, by the way. Tell was it Jolie? Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Tell Jolie I think you look ill. You don't look good. You don't look good.
You be illin'. So in terms of like the 49ers, I mean, they absolutely need to win this game. They absolutely need to make a statement. It's pretty similar to how I feel about the Ravens. And that's really why I hate these buys, because we don't know how they're going to look in the playoffs yet because we haven't seen them. And we've seen what Jordan Love did against a Cowboys defense that looked entirely unprepared for what hit it, and then refused to make any real adjustments during the first half of the game. I mean, whoever gets to hire Dan Quinn as their head coach, good luck. Because he had 5 or 6 interviews lined up. Word out of Dallas is he might have been, Brad, if you will, a bit distracted. Now, I can't blame the guy for wanting to get back as a head coach in the National Football League. I can't blame the guy for maybe wanting to distance himself from Mike McCarthy. But that was just a horrific, disgraceful display of defense. And I have to blame the defensive coordinator for that. They are not going to run into that same kind of defense in San Francisco. Now, do I think the Packers are going to make things a little bit more interesting than you'd like? Yes, but I am taking the 49ers as well.
Yeah, my message to Dan Quinn, please turn your hat back the other way forwards. You're not 15 anymore. Every time we see that guy in the press box, he has his hat on backwards and he's cheering like he's 25 years old. Dan, turn your hat around. I mean,
I love the hat backwards.
Get out of here.
is one of my all-time favorite things. But you and Jolie have a lot in common. She would say the same exact thing.
I know, but I have to have a conversation with her about that 49ers game because I don't know. You don't look well.
All right. So moving on to the last game of the divisional round of the 2024 National Football League playoffs. Chiefs at the Bills. I think that the Bills roller coaster ride is actually going to come to an end. Now, either way, I think this is going to be a close game. So the Bills, to take the Bills, Brad, you're going to have to give up 3 points. I wouldn't be surprised if maybe even the Bills won by a point or 2, but I like the Chiefs in this one. I've got to believe that Patrick Mahomes and that offense have figured a couple things out. I thought this line, as interesting as it is, would be maybe even a little lower than it actually is. So I believe this Chiefs defense is going to, for the most part, contain Josh Allen and that Buffalo Bills offense. I hate this game. I wish this was the AFC Championship game, honestly. I love the Josh Allen roller coaster ride. It's very difficult for me to pick against Josh Allen, but I'm going to go with Money Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs in this one.
Yeah, I mean, I remember last week saying that, both teams have played in the Super Bowl. We're going to be early exits. I predicted the Eagles won, and I said the Chiefs last week, I think they'll hang on for one extra week, right? I think it all ends here, Dave. The Chiefs, to me, you talk about that window of opportunity. It's closing on that team. Yeah, they got a break. They got, the Dolphins, who had 0 players left on defense. And, they managed to get out of there with a win and that kind of thing. But I just kind of feel like the trajectory of these teams is going in the different directions. The Bills are playing great football. Kansas City's not. Now, these teams have met in the playoffs before, and during the regular seasons, they've been really exciting games to watch. And the Chiefs have always seemed to come out on top of that deal. And the bottom line is that the Chiefs have always been a better football team. But this year, I kind of feel like the Bills are a better football team. I just think the Chiefs, that window of opportunity is closing quickly. Travis Kelce's getting old. Some of that offensive line is getting old. The defense isn't very good. Mahomes is eating up a ton of money with his salary. And, you see that, part of that window of opportunity thing is that you want to get the quarterback that's on their rookie contract. They're not making a lot of money. You can pay a bunch of guys around them and you look great, right? And then all of a sudden the quarterback cashes in. He's won a Super Bowl and now he's making $45 million and there's nothing left for the rest of the team, right? I mean, Tom Brady was the one guy that kind of figured it out. You got to give up a little money to make everybody else around you a little bit better. And I just think the Chiefs are really lacking talent right now. And you're going to Buffalo, a team that's red hot. Now, there is one advantage to the Chiefs. They've had 2 extra days rest because the Bills started listening to the mayor last weekend, and they backed their game up a day, right? Or the governor, whoever the hell it was. And so now the Chiefs have got a little advantage, right? Because the Bills got 2 less days to prepare for this thing. So that's what makes this thing a little bit more intriguing to me. But I think the Bills are the better football team. And this type of game, I'm going to go with the better football team. I'm going to give the 3 points to take the Bills.
I want to flip flop. I want to join you. I want to get on the Six Flags Magic Mountain roller coaster ride with you, Brad. But I can't do it. I think that the Chiefs. Yes, you were right about the impending doom of the Philadelphia Eagles last week. I ignored fact 1, fact 2, fact 3, fact 4. I ignored all the facts with the Eagles. The Chiefs are a different story. I look at this and I think I even, think, hey, maybe even Buffalo will win the game, but they won't win it by more than a point or two. If they do. So I like the Chiefs in this one. Historically, these two teams have played each other pretty tight, and they've been close games. As far as I know, Brad, I'll be able to watch this game live at home in front of the big TV. Hopefully there's no other another birthday party dinners on the slate for this.
Hey, let me ask you this: how old is the guy who it's his birthday?
Oh God, in his 40s, I believe.
40? Wait, 40s? I thought it was like a kid's birthday or something.
No, this is an adult.
I don't know. Now I got a real problem with this now.
So not a sports guy at all. So
obviously.
Yeah. So he definitely won't care so much about that. But anyways, it's going to be a fun weekend of football. I might not actually get to watch the 49er game in its entirety until late night. That being said, Brad, I'm not sure if you heard this today, but I've got an idea for a movie. And the name of this movie would be Disrespecting Bill Belichick. The interview process with the Atlanta Falcons. I heard earlier this afternoon that the Falcons were bringing Bill Belichick back for a second interview. Okay, this is Bill Belichick. He's won more games than anybody else in the history of the NFL except for one coach. You've got tape of Bill Belichick from the last 24 years. You've had the opportunity to see Bill Belichick do press conferences. You've had the opportunity to see Bill Belichick do media stints as well. You've already sat down with Bill Belichick, and yet you have to bring him back for a second interview. Brad, the disrespect of Bill Belichick is just off the hook.
Well, like I said last week, we were trying to figure out where Belichick's going to go. I said the two teams I think that there's a kind of a fit is Atlanta and Seattle, right?
Yeah.
Because Arthur Blank likes to spend money, and the guy up in Seattle likes to spend money, right? You're not going to get him for cheap. But, if I was to guess, I mean, the conversation kind of probably went like this. Well, I'd like to be able to run the franchise and maybe, pick the players. I mean, there was probably some sort of thing from Belichick about, wanting total control, right? And, that's what you're going to get. And at this point in the guy's career, he's not going to want to go there. He's not going to deal with Desmond Ridder. I mean, come on. Yeah. Right? He just got done with the worst quarterback he's ever had for the last couple of years. And, I'd be surprised, I would be surprised if he went somewhere that didn't have a top flight quarterback. I really would. And I don't think Geno Smith is the answer. And I don't think Desmond Ridder or whatever they got in Atlanta is any answers. Those teams both need a quarterback. And so, that's the dilemma. Belichick's great with defenses, but you got to have that guy that can run your offense and, not make mistakes and protect the football. And neither one of those teams have that right now.
So, so if Belichick ends up in Atlanta, obviously he'll have so much control. He can go get a young quarterback if he wants, or he can go get, which I just don't know if he has the patience for a rookie, or he can go get an established quarterback that's been in the league for, I don't know, maybe 14 years. Somebody who has deep family ties and connections to the state of Georgia, and that I'm thinking of Kirk Cousins. Look, there are options for Belichick in the short term in Atlanta to at least get a quarterback that's going to do less harm than evil. So, You can hear the "Devil Goes Down to Georgia" song playing now when Bill Belichick gets hired in Atlanta. In Los Angeles, now you're there in the Los Angeles metropolitan area. And word on the street out of LA today was that Mike Vrabel was sighted in the in the city. Brad, as much as I know you're not going to be having Thanksgiving dinner at the Harbaugh's house, wouldn't you rather have Harbaugh as your head coach for this particular team than Mike Vrabel at this particular time? And
absolutely, yeah. I mean, there's not many I wouldn't rather have than or Mike Vrabel. I'm not a big Vrabel guy.
Yeah, let him go up to Seattle.
Yeah, I don't think he's the answer there. But the Chargers are been known to do things on the cheap. They're not going to pay out a lot of money. I could see them going out and get some random guy that nobody's ever heard of. I mean, that's what they did last time, right? And didn't work out real well. But again, you talk about that window of opportunity with that young quarterback. Whoever's coming into it has got an opportunity, right? They still got some pretty good players there in LA with the Chargers. And they just need a coach that's competent. And so, yeah, if Bill Belichick came in there, I would love him coming there. But again, the Chargers aren't going to pay that kind of money for him, right?
Yeah. I can't believe that the Chargers allowed Jim Harbaugh to walk out of their offices without a deal. I mean, if you're really serious about winning, like if any of these teams are really serious, like I know he's quirky and I know you're going to have to give up some control and he's going to want to run things, his way. He's going to want, certain health drinks served on the sidelines. And he's going to want, there's dietary requirements amongst other things. So I know all of that about Jim Harbaugh, but I mean, proven track record. I don't know how Atlanta allowed him to simply walk out of their offices as well. I could see Harbaugh not meshing with Arthur Blank, but like it is fascinating to me. Pay the man, get him his gig. Stop messing around with guys like Vrabel. Maybe Dan Quinn, let Dan Quinn and Vrabel, duke it out in Seattle and or in Carolina. I got a bad feeling that the only potential landing spot for not Dan Campbell, Dan Quinn is actually going to be in Carolina.
I think the guy who's the best fit, they're not going to get him because they're not going to pay it. But I think the guy who's the best fit for the Chargers is Pete Carroll. Pete Carroll knows what to do with a quarterback. LA loves Pete Carroll, right? From his days at SC. Trust me, SC would love to have him back, right? They haven't been anything since he left. But I think it's a good fit. The problem is Pete Carroll's going to come with a price tag. And again, you always run into those problems with the Chargers when it comes to the price tag. It's always been one of their problems, right?
Well, look, I mean, that's the problem with Harbaugh right there.
You mentioned Harbaugh, but this is not a new game for Harbaugh. He's done this before where he's went on interviews in the NFL, and then for some reason or another, he goes back to Michigan and gets a bigger payday, right? He's played that game pretty well himself, and, he's making a lot of money, right? So the Chargers aren't going to pay that kind of money.
Yeah, well, I like the Pete Carroll idea, and I just can't help but wonder, like, how bad the Cowboys will be if Dan Quinn ends up someplace else, because you bringing in a new defensive coordinator, that's never a good thing.
Yeah, the Cowboys need a facelift, Dave. I mean, It's just, again, we talk about that window of opportunity, and it's closing quickly. The offensive line is not what it used to be. Zach Martin's getting old. Tron Smith, or whatever his name is getting old.
The running game's nearly non-existent.
almost non-existent. Now they had some bad injuries in the secondary that hurt them a lot this year, but people figured out how to handle their defensive end. You just run at him. He doesn't like to play against the run. And, I mean, that was a guy that just went quiet down the stretch for the Cowboys. I mean, you want to talk about a guy that had a silent second season. We were talking about him being the greatest freak that ever played the position a year ago. And you almost didn't hear a word about him the last 3-4 weeks of the season here. So, the Cowboys need to face that. They got to quit guys like CeeDee Lamb, for instance, Dave. This is one of my pet peeves this week. Is CeeDee Lamb, will go out for a pass. He'll get a first down and he gives it this thing, right? He's, pointing first down. CeeDee, there's 50 of them a game, right? Don't make it sound like it's, the greatest first down of all. How about just going back and playing another play and quitting putting on a show and go out and play 60, 70 plays a game and win games? I get just so tired of their act down there. And that's what I look at it. It's like an act,
I'm going to send you
They're not serious, right?
I'm going to send you some rabbit ears for your television, Brad. I mean,
but it's like an act. It's like they're not a serious team, They're just everything is for show, and there's a lot of glitz and glitter, and underneath it, there's not a lot of cement and bolts, right?
And still, Brad, when we get around to picking who's going to go to the Super Bowl next year from the NFC,
you're going to take the Cowboys.
I'm probably going to lean towards the Cowboys because on paper they're going to make a lot of good moves. It is a good it's a good organization. They just they had honestly they had a defensive coordinator that was not concentrating, so to speak, enough on what was in front of them. And I think that's a big part of what happened. And then also I do think, the offense is really pretty predictable, especially when the running game doesn't work, which was a lot of the time. But the defense was what you really, I know Dak threw the pick six, but this was like, I don't put the blame on Dak as much as I put it on Dan Quinn and that defense.
But it's the same thing as it was when Tony Romo was playing quarterback, right? Tony Romo put up great stats during the regular season. You get to a playoff game and he throws a pick six.
Yeah.
And I feel like I'm watching Groundhog's Day with this team. It's been going on for 15 years. It was Dez Bryant and those guys, and now it's CeeDee Lamb and those guys, right? But it's the same show. It's the same glitz and glitter. I just want some guys that are mentally tough, can go out there and play a game when it matters. And the Cowboys just don't have that. Their quarterback is not one of those guys. He's the Kirk Cousins of his division, right? Puts up great numbers during the regular season. He's a check down Charlie when it matters. And when the game gets on the line and it's a big game, he throws a pick six or he fumbles. I'm not a believer in the guy. I'm just not.
All right, there we go.
Now we're going to have the Cowboy fans all over us. We're going to have the Cowboy fans all over us now, Dave.
If you use royal blue in your uniforms, we might be in trouble this week with the some comments made about the Lions fans, which is not quite royal blue, and of course the Dallas Cowboys. All right, I am sporting my big Minnesota Timberwolves hoodie tonight. I know how much basketball is not loved by Brad Hoyseth. But I will say this, the Minnesota Timberwolves, this just rarely ever happens, a national televised basketball game tonight, tipping off at, I believe, 7 p.m. on TNT. T-Wolves, currently the best record in the Western Conference, Mr. Hoyseth. So
no doubt, man, you might get me interested pretty soon if you keep it up.
Yeah.
What's their record? How did that happen? I haven't even heard this.
Yeah, no, they're like I had to pull up the actual number, but they've lost, I think, 11 and won 27.
Wow.
Something like that. So
I'm gonna have to pull out my hat from 30 years ago.
well, it's good because they've gone back. Some nights they're wearing their original jerseys, Brad. That's their throwbacks for this year. Is their original jerseys. And when you watch Anthony Edwards play, he had a dunk the other night that was, dare I say, and I'm going to say it, Jordan-esque. Anthony Edwards, a.k.a. Ant-Man, is absolutely fantastic. All right, enough hoops. We got to get out of here. Thanks so much for tuning in. And as always, leave your comments, positive and or negative. That is Brad Hoyseth over there in beautiful but dark Southern California. I'm Dave DeBaugh up in Northern California, wishing you all a tremendous rest of your sports viewing day.